In this video I'm going to be talking about some advanced report writing techniques. I'll be working in Heritage. These same techniques can be applied directly to HomeTrex and Excel Pro 5. Before I get into the video, I want to stress the fact that software is very much like buying a car to most people. They just want to get in and drive. They don't want to necessarily know how things work under the hood. Certainly don't buy the car with the intention of becoming a mechanic or an automotive engineer. I mention that because these are advanced techniques. These techniques will require some knowledge of Microsoft Office and in particular Excel. Using Heritage HomeTrex Excel Pro 5 requires no knowledge at all of Microsoft Office or Microsoft Excel in particular. These are the techniques for the person who goes out, buys the car, and then wants to take it to the racetrack to see what it can really do. So with that, let's move on into the tutorial. You'll see that I have a page that I've started working on, and I have the first field labeled. It says the fields below check all 5 checkboxes. L are precedence, LR meaning left to right. Below that, the fields below check 4 of the 5 checkboxes. Then the first field below checks 4 of the 5 checkboxes. I'll demonstrate in a minute how that differs from the fields above. And then finally I have the fields below check all 5 checkboxes with a right to left precedence. I'll go to the other page. This actually is a page that is based off of template number 4 in the Heritage report software. So it's page template number 4 for those of you who want to work with this. The difference you'll notice is that here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns of checkboxes, and here I have 6 columns of checkboxes. You'll notice here that I mentioned that this is for vermiculite insulation. We'll come back to that. Right to left precedence, and then vermiculite insulation left to right precedence. And again, I'm going to discuss what I mean by precedence in detail in a few minutes. Let's go back to the first page, and first let me just demonstrate what this does before we get into how it does it. If I click on the inspected checkbox, you'll see that it automatically placed text that says everything is okay. Obviously these comments are simple for purposes of the demonstration. And then the second line says this is my second comment related to inspected. If I uncheck this, I can right click, by the way, to put an X in the box just as you normally would in Heritage. Double left click for a check mark, double left click or right click to clear, right click for an X. Not inspected, I have comment not inspected, and again this is my second comment related to not inspected. Not present, same thing. Repairs are needed, same thing. And then finally defect or deficiency observed. Now you notice that the defect or deficiency observed is in red. If I check on the first box, that first line is green. Second box it's black, third, fourth it's black, and then the fifth box it's red. And as the section title indicates, it's checking all 5 checkboxes with a left to right precedence. Let me explain what I mean by left to right precedence. If I click the first box, it says everything okay, and my second comment, etc., as we just looked at. If I check the second box, it stays the same, third, fourth, fifth, doesn't change. So this is obviously not the way we would want to end up I just put this in here for purposes of the tutorial this way. So I'll uncheck these. Now if I go back and check only one, I'm fine. But if I have any two, the precedence is left to right. So the leftmost box is going to have priority, and it will determine what goes in these two fields below the section title. Let's go down to the next one. So the next one, we have the fields below check 4 of the 5 check boxes. Well, let's see. We check the first box, it does nothing. Well, that's alright, because typically if you're completing an inspection report, if you check something and make no comment about it, intuitively people understand that that means that you have nothing to say about it. It's okay. If I check the second box, you'll see now I have a comment. If I check the third box, fourth box, and then finally the fifth box, you'll notice again the fifth box, my text is red. Now that incidentally is the subject of a completely separate video where I go into detail on how we do the automatic coloring, and that's what I consider to be a basic function. It's an advanced function within Heritage, but it requires no knowledge of Excel, is what I mean by that, or Microsoft Office or formulas or anything like that. Those types of things that we're going to get into in this video. But that is a pretty cool feature. It's in HomeTrex Heritage, Excel Pro 5, and several other of our inspection reports. Anyway, moving right along. Here we have 4 of the 5 checkboxes, but you'll see it says on this line, no auto text on this row. So I put a check mark here, and just like the section above, I put a line here, but this line I do not put auto text. Now this is a pretty realistic example. We're getting more realistic, I should say, as we go, because here you might want to have a line dedicated to automated text and then have additional lines that are not automated. And of course, as always, you can insert rows. So if I want to insert a row, I can have additional rows. Now I have 2 rows of text that will not be automated. I can pull comments, of course, from the library through the drop boxes as I normally would, or I can use the global search function also, as I normally could do, like that. But the first box I have reserved, or the first line I should say, I have reserved for automated text. And again, I want to say inspected, but then I want to say that there's a repair needed, or there's a defect or deficiency observed. So that's a more practical way to use the feature. A still more practical way, however, would be to have, with respect to the auto text I should say, would be to have right to left precedence. The reason being, if I click on the first box, I've inspected it, it tells me everything is okay. That's my auto text related to the first checkbox. But what if I have a defect or deficiency? Now you see this has precedence over this. This takes, in other words, priority over this. Just to review, if we go back up to the first section, you'll see that it stays, it's left to right precedence, not right to left precedence. So typically with an inspection report, you would want something like this. As I said, for most purposes it would be more practical, if you're going to have automated text, to reserve one row, probably the row immediately below your section title, as I've done in this section. So let's do the same thing down here as we have here with the right to left precedence, one row of automated text, and let's say two rows of standard text. First thing I want is a heading. I'm going to just grab this same heading, copy and paste, Control C, Control V. Then I will come down a row. I'll insert a row. So we'll have those two rows of standard text. I will then come up to my row with precedences. First I'm going to uncheck this, uncheck this. And I want to show you here that even though this is checked, do Control C, Control V to paste, you'll see that even though I copied this and it had this comment, defect or deficiency observed, when I pasted in this row, the comment's not there. I did a copy and paste. The reason is we don't have a check mark in this box. See, if I put a check mark, then I get a comment. If we were using the drop boxes, it would depend on which category from the library is assigned to this particular field, something that we would do through the category assignment tool. And you'll see here that I have structural grounds, grading and drainage assigned to this field. What we now have is a practical, useful setup. We have a section title, we have a single row reserved for automated text, we have a couple of rows of standard text, and then we also of course have the ability to put the photos and so on as we would normally do. I'll select left photo from my photo insert group. I'll double click on a house, there's a left photo and a right photo as well. Now I have a section title as you would have, I have a section reserved for automated text, I have two rows, which can be an unlimited number of course of rows for standard text, and then of course my photos, which also could be unlimited, and then I'll put my check mark, everything is okay. So let's go over to the next page. Here I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing something a little bit different at the same time. It's the same concept as we'll see when we get into the part that's under the hood. Here I have insulation. As I noted up here, I replaced my legend. Just to refresh your memory here, we have a legend, inspected, not inspected, and so on. Here I've replaced this legend with this statement: the insulation depth can be changed to any values you want. I just chose some pretty typical depths. So I chose 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, and 20. Make it whatever you want to make it. For that matter, you could get very sophisticated, but this would be beyond this video, and perhaps I'll cover that in a future video, where we would have drop boxes select the depth and then generate text based on the drop box. It's actually not too difficult to do, it's just that it's beyond the scope of this video. So here we're using vermiculite insulation. Vermiculite has an R value of 2.3 for every inch, and the reason that I mention that is you'll see is that we have to actually write a formula that calculates the R value. The higher values are toward the right, therefore it's right to left precedence. And I can just keep going on down the line and you'll see that those numbers increase. I'll leave these boxes all checked for now. I'll come down to this row. First box, I get the same value, 8.52, just as I did in the first section. But you see here the second box, same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing. Now if I clear these, this is a little bit easier to see what I mean by precedences when we're using numbers. If I click on the highest value, which is 20 inches, I get the highest R value, 42.6. You'll see it's the only box checked. So if you were only checking one box, it really wouldn't make a lot of difference if you had right to left or left to right. But you can see how the left to right and right to left work. And it's obvious that the precedence is more important when you're looking at field descriptions such as inspected, not inspected, repair, and so on, than it is with the numbers. You're not likely to check, as you would inspected and deficiency at the same time, you're not likely to check 4 inches and 20 inches at the same time. If you do, and you have left to right precedence, you're going to get the lower value. So that's what we're doing. Now let's go into how we're doing it. If you're not already aware, there are 2 files that accompany this video. One is a PDF that shows all of the formulas that we're going to be covering. The other is a demo version of Heritage that opens up to these 2 pages where you can look in the actual fields at the formulas. So you don't need to worry about taking notes or remembering anything here. You have 2 additional resources. This is just your walkthrough showing you how everything works and how we get from point A to point B. So starting back with our first field, fields below, check all 5 check boxes, left to right precedence. Well, how did we get that? Let's take a look. We have a formula, and I'm just going to run through this formula quickly. Again, you're not going to figure out how to write formulas in a span of a few minutes in a video. You'll see that when I bring up the formula, below I have some notes. A note here, it says how the formula works, if logical test, true, false, etc. What I'm saying here is if C10 is greater than 0, everything is okay. C is if we count over from the left of our screen, move the cursor, we'll see that we're the 3rd position over. The positions are identified as A, B, C, D, and so on. You'll notice also that this is colored here, so the C10 is blue, this box is blue. Over here, E10, see we have C, D is in between, E, E10 is green, G10 is violet, maroon, and then a light green. Also, you'll notice that the brackets here, the parentheses, are in color as well. They correspond to these positions. So here we have a formula that says that if C10 is greater than 0, in other words, we're just simply saying if the field is not empty, we'll say that everything is okay. This is where our precedence comes in. If it is not empty, we go on to the next one. If E10 is greater than 0, we say it's not inspected. And then G10 is not present. I10, repairs are needed. K10, defect or deficiency observed. Very simple. So that's a basic, simple if statement. And the structure of an if statement, if we didn't nest the statements, which is what this is called, is nesting, where we have an if and then an if inside of an if and an if inside of an if and an if inside of an if. If we had one set of conditions, the first would be the value of true, the second is the value if false. So we have a condition, the result if true, the result if false. Very simple. Just remember that. Condition, result if true, result if false. What we're doing differently with nesting is we're saying result if true. If the result is false, let's do a second test. And again, with that one, if the result is true, here's the result. If the result is false, here's a third test, and so on. So that's all we're doing there, is we're nesting the if statement. Let's move down to the next one. This one says that we're checking 4 of the 5 checkboxes. Very simple. All we did was we reduced it. You'll see here that my first checkbox is not highlighted. My second, third, fourth, and fifth are highlighted: blue, green, violet, and maroon. And again, we've got the colors down here that correspond. So you can see we're doing exactly the same thing. We're nesting. It's just that we have one less checkbox that we're we're looking at the status of. And we'll move down to this one. We have 4 or 5 check boxes. Here, the difference is, let me back up. We also have formula in the row below. So we have a formula here, we have a formula here, hence we have 2 different comments. And if we look at the formulas, the first formula, everything is okay for the first checkbox. The second formula, this is my second comment related to inspected, is my comment. Exactly the same formula, but inside those quotation marks is my custom text. And that's how you get your custom text. So you could take this formula exactly, go to any page in your Hometrex report, starting at the top. You have to start at the top row, the first empty row under your heading. So once you do that, you're good to go from there. From that point, you can replicate that formula into additional sections. So the difference is we get down to here where we have no formula in these rows. We have a formula only in this row. And here again, we're only checking 4 of the 5 boxes. Here we're checking 4 of the 5 boxes, a formula here, a formula here. Here we're checking 4 of the 5, but only one row has the formula. Here we have the field below checks all 5 checkboxes with right to left precedence. Now let's take a look at that formula. Here we have the order is reversed. We're first testing K, which is now the blue one. You notice here, if I come back up here, just to refresh your memory here, the first one is the blue one, but it's on the left. Here, we come down here, the first one, blue, is on the right. So we start with K and we work our way back. Same comments, reverse order in the formula. It's all we need to do to reverse the precedence. The precedence in the formula itself is always left to right, or so as to avoid confusion, I'll say from beginning to end. It's what you're referring to is what's taking the precedence. And I could actually make the order anything I want to make it. I could make it that this box is first, this is second, this is third, this is fourth, this is fifth, and so on. So whatever you want to do, you just lay it out in your formula, your order of precedence. So those are the and then finally we have this, of course, where we have automated text and standard text here. Here we also had a formula, with the only difference being from the row above it, the comment in the comment section. That's how you do the automated text. It may look a little bit complicated. It's actually very easy. Take your copy of Hometrex, take the demo file, copy this. I'll just highlight, Control C. We'll open up Notepad, Control V. There you have it. And just to make this a little bit easier to read on the screen, I'll increase the font size. Make this nice and big. Now you do want to be careful when copying and pasting that you don't have carriage returns or line feeds. Here we've broken this. The advantage to having the smaller text is when I copy and paste, I don't run the risk of the Windows putting in a line feed or carriage return, which would render the formula unusable. It would not work. So I'll put my font back, typically just to avoid any kind of hassles like that. I'll put it down to the smallest size when I'm going back and forth, just for purposes of copying and pasting. That's all you want to do, though, is you want to copy from the demo into Notepad, copy from Notepad into your field. Remember to start at the top row, the first row below the first section title, and then I'll do this one more time just to show you this is the easier way to do it so you don't mess something up. We'll leave this formula here. We'll go back to Notepad again, paste again, and now what I'll do is I'll make my text edits here. Make this bigger where I can see it, and just replace. Now, one thing you want to be aware of here is do not put comments that have quotation marks within the comment. The formula will not recognize it. So if I wanted to put something that needed to be in quotations, what I'll say is my quotation. No, can't do quotation. You just do a single apostrophe. The apostrophe will appear, the quotations will not. If I were to put quotation, the formula wouldn't work. That's an off-limits character to use when you're doing this way. But you can use the apostrophe as a single quotation, which is a common thing. You'll see that in lots of different situations. I'll close this again. We'll go back to the report. So we've covered the text. That's all easy enough. What about formulas? Now this is a little bit more involved. But if you master the first part, the text part, then this will be relatively easy. I would suggest that if this is all new to you, that you do not start with this. Start with the text and then move over to this, and you'll see why very quickly. Let's take a look at our formulas here. Here we have right to left precedence, again, which is something that we would want probably in most situations, but certainly in the text. When I click on this, you'll see that I have the same highlights as I did before. I now have a sixth nested condition that I'm testing. This one is in orange, so we have the same 5 colors we had before, but we've added orange. Looking at the formula, though, you'll see that we have something different starting the formula. We start with the if statement, but we need to say or one of these is greater than 0. In the other, we didn't care if it was an or statement. Now we could have said and again, I don't want to confuse you, but if I come back here, and there are lots of ways that you can accomplish things, but this is just one way. If we come down here, which we said is a good way to have this, right? We could also say that we only want a comment to appear here if this checkbox is checked and one of the others is checked. See, the difference here is we didn't use an and or an or statement. We used no additional logic other than our testing of the checkbox. You could have put the logic in, however. You could have used an and statement. The next page we're using an or statement, but you could have used an and statement, and you could have said this box and, actually you would combine them. You would say this box and this or this or this or this. That's getting a little bit deeper into the logic. Master this first and then tackle combining your logic, your ands and your ors. This would have been the way to do this, though. I could have done the and, I could have done the and this, I could have done and this. Lots of ways. If you understand logic, especially like digital logic, this will all come very naturally to you. If this is all new to you, don't worry about it. Just use the examples that I give to you and work from there, and you should be okay. Okay, let's come back over here, take another look at this. So here we're using the or. So what we're saying is we've got the if, so we're going to be testing conditions, but we want to say or C10 is greater than 0, E10 is greater than 0, In other words, OR means C10 or this, or this, or this, or this, or this. It's just like in algebra, though. You don't necessarily have to repeat that every time. You know, you just put it at the beginning, and it's the same as in arithmetic, like your distributive rule. So anyway, we've got the OR conditions set. So we don't want to do anything. Let me explain why we want to do that. If we removed the OR, and this is described in the PDF that accompanies the tutorial, maybe a little bit better than I'm going to describe it here. If we didn't do that, it would always put the total R value even when all of our boxes are unchecked. So you might have a situation where you have a sheet where you have different variables and you only want something to appear in these fields when you have a box checked. You may not want that box checked because it just clutters the report, makes it difficult to read. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're saying only continue with this evaluation, these tests, if one of these is greater than 0, or one of these fields is checked, in other words. If none of them checked, let's just leave it alone and not do anything. Alright, the second thing we're going to do is we have both text, which is the total R value phrase, and we have a number. So what we want to do is we want to concatenate, in other words, join together the formula result with a text result or a comment. In this case, it's not really a result, it's a fixed comment. And just as with your text comments on the previous page, you'll just change what's in the quotation marks. Now, one thing I'll point out here, in my quotation marks, you'll see that I left a space. The reason is if you're concatenating and you don't leave a space, then you're going to have your values. Again, if I just look at how this is, I'll show you. I'll take this space out, and you see how the T of total is right up against the 2 in the 8.52. Well, we don't want that. So whenever you're concatenating and you have text, put a space. If you need a space between two numbers, you simply don't put any text. You just put two quotation marks with a space, and then you continue on with your concatenation. So you would be concatenating 3 values instead of 2. The first would be a first number. This is if you're doing numbers. The first is first number, second is a space, third is your third number. In this case, we have one number, we have one piece of text, so we'll just put that space in with this text rather than create a third piece to have to concatenate. So those are the operations that we're performing here that are different from the preceding set of formulas on the previous page. So we have, again, we have the if statement, which is the same. Inside the if statement, we have an additional set of conditions. This is a logical OR, and again, you can combine ands and ors just like you can in any logic. We could have said, as I said in the previous example, you could have said this and this, or this, or this, or this, or this. So these are taken as a group, any one of these greater than 0 and this, or any combination of those things. Again, I don't want to confuse you. For now, stick to the basics. Master this. When I get enough emails from users saying that they've mastered this part, they're ready to go on to the next step, I'll do another video if I haven't done one already by that point. So there's our formula, our total formula. Inside the formula, we have an arithmetic formula as well, and I'll show you that. Here we have our logical that we just talked about, our concatenate statement that we just talked about. Now we have some arithmetic. We're saying if it's greater than 0, let's put this value. If this is greater than 0, M10, which is in this case the orange box, you'll see this is in orange. So if this is checked, in other words, and this is our precedence, remember, right to left in this instance, then we will evaluate this formula. If it is not checked, let's move on and see if this one is checked. If it is, we'll evaluate the formula. If it is not, because we have these nested ifs, we move on to the next one, and so on until we've gone through all 6. At this point, if you're new to this, you're probably completely overwhelmed, and that's okay. If you're not, you would be on certainly a much higher plane of existence than most of us. So let's take a look at how you'd break this down. First, let's start with a simple if statement. Now, the other thing I want to point out to you is that we are referring to these locations, which are in Excel terminology referred to as cells. This is this cell, as I mentioned before. That could be numbers. So I'm going to come down here. We have formulas in these. Let's find one with no formula. I'll press F2, or you can double click to enter the edit mode. The test and the results will be between the parentheses. So we'll put our logical test. So we'll say if 1 plus 1 is greater than 4, which we know that it is not, we will say the value, if true, is, we'll put the word true in quotation marks, comma, and then the value if false in quotation marks. We put the word false, and then close the parenthesis, press enter, and there's our formula. That's the basic if. That's what we're starting with. We're just nesting ifs. So this is the structure of your basic if statement. Now, if you want to build a complex if statement where you're nesting, the easy way to do this is to start on paper. I wouldn't recommend starting in Heritage or an Excel spreadsheet for that matter. I go over to Notepad again. I want to make this big enough so that I can see it. If the formula gets too long, I can reduce the typeface size. So here I have my basic formula, but now I want to nest something. So I want a second if statement. What I'll do is I'll come down to a new line, and I'll say, well, what do I want to do if this is false? Which is what we're doing. We're doing a first test. We'll present the results, our comment in the first case, or our formula in the second page here. But we now want to continue because our result is false. We need to do a second test. I'll just come down. We don't need to write the equal sign and so on, but we still need to do the if. That's the only part we can leave out, is the equal sign. We will do everything else the same. So now we'll say if 1 plus 1 is greater than 3. What do we do? Again, I'll just make this easy. I'll say true and false again. Now I have a second set of conditions. I'm going to take this and copy it. Control C. I'll come up here and I just paste it into my false. Now I have nested one inside of another. One thing you want to be careful of is keeping track of your parentheses. If you do this as I have done it, copy and paste, and then just keep repeating that, you're less likely to lose track of your parentheses. In the end, you'll have as many left parentheses as you have right parentheses. You see, we have a left, that's our first left. We have a left, that's our second left. And then we have a right and a right. That's how you nest your if statements. So I don't want to go too far with that. I think I've given you enough to master before really moving on. Practice with the nesting. Practice with the logical operators if you want to do that, and the concatenate. Again, though, you can work with these, especially the concatenate, individually. In fact, let's just do one on concatenate before we wrap up this lesson. So I'll put my first name on one row, my last name on another row. I want to come down to where we're going to do our formula. I'm going to do the concatenate. There's the first part of the formula with the parenthesis. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my cursor, I'm going to come up here, click on it, and you see what it did? It put a value in for me. That's all I have to do. Then I'll come down, back down to my formula. I'll put a comma. Now remember I said if you want a space between, because here we're not typing in a fixed value, we're taking a value based on something else, a value in another location. So I need to put in a space by putting a set of quotation marks with a space. That's what I was talking about, a third item to concatenate, a second comma, and then finally I will click on where my last name is, and you'll see it puts that value for me. I just close the formula with the parentheses, and there I have my name, first and last name with a space between. Just to review this, if I had not put this space, I'll take out the space, so I have, again, you'll see that this is highlighted blue, this is highlighted in green, this is the first, this is the second, just as with these formulas. If I press enter, my names all run together. I didn't want that, so I put the comma, quotation mark, space, quotation mark, and that puts the space. Okay, hopefully you will be able to follow all of this. Certainly I invite comments or feedback. As I say in the PDF, that's outside the scope of the normal tech support and so on for Heritage HomeTrex XL Pro 5, as far as doing a lot of tech support on these. If you do have formulas that you're having trouble with, feel free to contact me. I'll do what I can do to help you. This is really a pretty cool feature. It really can take it to the next level, as you can see, especially if you get into doing things like energy audits and so on, where you want to combine text and the results of calculations. That covers everything for this video. Make sure that you download the demo of Heritage that accompanies this and the PDF. They're actually combined together in a zip file. If you're viewing this video, or if you got this video from a source other than bestinspectors.net, you may be seeing the video by itself, in which case contact me or just go over to bestinspectors.net, request access to our video library. Even though the accompanying files are not videos, I put them in the video library just to keep everything in one place. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.